At 01501 on May 19, 1944, Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton stood inside the cramped Combat Information Center of USS England, watching his sonar operator track a contact moving at 6 knots beneath the black waters north of Bougainville. 37 years old, on his first war patrol as commanding officer, he had 0 submarine kills. The Imperial Japanese Navy had deployed 7 submarines in a scouting line across the approaches to the Marianas. England was a Buckley-class destroyer escort, 77 feet shorter than a fleet destroyer, with a crew trained primarily for one mission, hunting submarines. What made her different was the weapon mounted on her foredeck, 24 spigot mortars arranged in neat rows. The British called it Hedgehog. The projectiles were fired 200 yards ahead of the ship in a circular pattern, fitted with contact fuses that detonated only if they struck something solid. Depth charges had been sinking submarines for 3 decades. They were rolled off the stern, set to explode at an estimated depth, and crews hoped the submarine was still there when the charges reached detonation depth. The statistics told a brutal story. British forces had conducted 5,174 depth charge attacks during the war and achieved just 85 confirmed kills, 1 success for every 60 attacks. By the time the charges exploded, submarines had already maneuvered away. The blasts churned the water so violently that sonar was useless for 15 minutes. Allowing submarines to escape in the confusion. Hedgehog changed everything. Forward-throwing attacks allowed sonar contact to be maintained throughout the strike. Each projectile weighed 65 pounds, carrying 35 pounds of Torpex explosive. Misses were silent. No water disturbance. No lost contact. Still, the numbers were unproven. Early trials showed only a 5% success rate. Crews distrusted it. Captains preferred the familiar thunder of depth charges. Pendleton trusted mathematics. 1 Hedgehog kill for every 5 attacks versus 1 depth charge kill for every 80. The calculation was simple. Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had decoded a transmission from Japanese submarine I-16 4 days earlier. Destination Bougainville. Arrival time 2,200 hours, May 19. The intelligence was precise. England and 2 sister ships positioned themselves along I-16's route. Now the sonar contact was real. If you want to see whether Pendleton's new weapon actually worked against Japanese submarines, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next was extraordinary. Back to Pendleton. The sonar operator called out the range, 1,500 yards. I-16 was diving, executing standard Japanese evasion, sharp turns and changing depth. The submarine's commander knew he was being hunted. Pendleton ordered the first Hedgehog attack at 1341. 24 projectiles arced through the afternoon sky, splashed into the Pacific, and sank at 23 feet per second. Silence. A miss. I-16 had turned away. The second attack scored a single hit at 130 feet. The explosion lifted England's bow, but it wasn't enough. The third attack missed. The fathometer revealed the problem. I-16 had gone deep, 325 feet, far deeper than Pendleton had estimated. On the fourth attack, I-16 turned inside the pattern. Another miss at 1433. The fifth attack produced 4 detonations, then 6. A massive underwater explosion followed. The blast lifted England's stern clear of the water and knocked sailors off their feet. 20 minutes later, debris surfaced: oil, wood, fabric. I-16 was destroyed. 107 men were dead. But Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had decoded another message. 7 additional Japanese submarines were positioned in a patrol line north of the Admiralty Islands, and England was sailing directly toward them. Commander Hamilton Haynes received the decoded intelligence at Tulagi on May 20. The Japanese 7th Submarine Squadron had deployed 7 Type Ko submarines along the line designated NA. The boats were stationed at precise intervals from Truk Island to waters west of Manus, RO-104, RO-105, RO-106, RO-108, RO-109, RO-112, and RO-116. Each submarine carried a crew of 56. Their mission was to detect American carrier task forces moving toward the Marianas or Palau Islands. Admiral Somu Toyota needed to know where the Americans would strike next. The submarines were his eyes. Haynes ordered England to join destroyer escorts George and Raby. 3 ships, 7 targets. The odds seemed impossible, but Pendleton had proven something in that first engagement with I-16. 5 Hedgehog attacks, 1 kill, a 20% success rate, 4 times better than early trials. The weapon worked. The crew believed in it now. They had heard the explosions, watched debris rise to the surface, and counted oil slicks spreading across the Pacific. The hunter-killer group departed Purvis Bay on May 21. Standard line abreast formation, 16,000 yards between ships during darkness. Radar sweeps every 30 seconds. Sonar pinging without pause. The Japanese submarines maintained radio silence now. No transmissions to intercept. No precise coordinates. The hunter-killer group would have to find them the old way: electronic detection, patience, and mathematics. Pendleton studied the charts in his cabin. The NA line crossed routes Admiral Halsey's forces had used before. The Japanese were predictable. They stationed submarines where American fleets had traveled previously, hoping they would pass there again. But Fleet Radio Unit Pacific had given the Americans an advantage the Japanese never suspected. The Americans knew exactly where the picket line lay. The only question was timing. Submarine patrol routines were predictable. Surface at night to recharge batteries. Dive at dawn. Remain submerged during daylight. Surface again after sunset. The window for radar detection was narrow. Submarines were vulnerable on the surface, but they were fast. A submarine commander could dive in 60 seconds, reach 200 feet in 3 minutes, and vanish into the black depths. England's crew had trained for this. Sonar operators could track a diving submarine, calculate depth, estimate speed, and predict position. Hedgehog launchers could be loaded and fired in 90 seconds. 24 projectiles. A 130-foot circle, 30 feet deep. Every attack was a gamble. Contact fuses meant certainty. If the projectiles detonated, they hit something. If they stayed silent, they missed. The arithmetic was simple and merciless. 7 submarines, 56 men per boat, 392 Japanese sailors. One Hedgehog salvo could kill them all in 9 seconds. At 0350 on May 22, Georgia's radar detected a surface contact at 15,000 yards. The first submarine, RO-106, was recharging her batteries. She never saw the destroyer escorts approaching. Georgia's searchlight snapped on, catching RO-106 on the surface. The submarine immediately crash-dived. Seawater flooded her ballast tanks. Her bow angled downward. Within 90 seconds, she was submerged. George fired Hedgehog at 0415. 24 projectiles splashed into the dark water. Silence. Mississippi. England regained sonar contact at 0425. Range 1,400 yards. RO-106 was running deep, making radical turns. The Japanese commander knew the tactics. Turn inside. The attack pattern changed depth constantly. Make the Americans guess. Pendleton didn't guess. His sonar operator tracked every turn, called out depth changes, range, bearing. The data fed directly to the Hedgehog firing. Solution. First attack missed. RO-106 had turned 30 degrees during the projectile. Sink time. 9 seconds was enough for a submarine to move 150 feet. Second attack. At 0501, 24 projectiles formed their circular pattern, sank through the darkness. 3 detonations, then a massive underwater explosion. The pressure wave rolled across the surface. England's hull shuddered. Georgian Raby felt it 4,000 yards away. At sunrise, the oil slick was half a mile wide. Debris floating, metal fragments, wood. No survivors. Kill number 2. 24 hours after I-16, the 3 destroyer escorts reformed their line, 16,000 yard spacing, continued northeast along the NA line. The next submarine was out there. RO-104 or RO-105 or any of the remaining 5. Japanese submarine commanders maintained strict radio silence, but they surfaced on predictable schedules. Batteries required recharging. Electric motors needed power. Diesel engines needed air. At 0600 on May 23, Raby's radar detected another surface contact. Range 22,000 yards. The contact duffed before identification. The Japanese commander had learned something from RO-100 CXS depth. Stay deep. Make them guess your depth. Raby fired 4 Hedgehog attacks starting at 0617. All misses. RO-104 was turning inside. The patterns. George tried next. First attack missed at 0717. Second, third, fourth attacks all missed between 0730 and 0810. The Japanese submarine commander was good. Every time projectiles splashed above him, he turned, changed depth, made the mathematics impossible. Division Commander Haynes watched England approach for her turn. Pendleton's crew had 2 kills. R.A. and George had none. The pattern was becoming clear. England's sonar operators were better, or her Hedgehog crews were faster, or Pendleton's firing solutions were more accurate. Whatever the reason, England was the killer in this hunting group. Hannes radioed 5 words that would become Navy legend. Oh hell, go ahead. England. Pendleton's first Hedgehog attack missed. RO-104 turned, but the second attack at 0834 scored 10 detonations, maybe 12. The explosions merged into one continuous roar. Breaking up noises followed. Metal tearing, bulkheads collapsing. Then a major underwater explosion 3 minutes later. The submarine's batteries had ruptured. Oil and debris surfaced at 10:45. Kill number 3, 72 hours. 3 submarines, 163 Japanese sailors dead. And England still had 4 more targets ahead. At 0120 on May 24, Georgia's radar detected Row 116 on the surface. Range, 15,000 yards. The submarine dove at 0130. England established sonar contact at 150. The pattern was repeating. Radar detection, crash dive, sonar tracking, hedgehog attack. But Row 116's commander had changed tactics. He went shallow, 150 feet. Most submarine commanders dove deep, 300 feet. 400 feet put maximum water between them and the surface. Maximum cushion against explosions. Row 116's commander did the opposite. Stayed shallow, made sharp turns, bet that the Americans would set their firing solutions for deep targets. He bet wrong. Pendleton's sonar operator called out the shallow depth. The hedgehog firing solution adjusted instantly. First attack at 0214. 3 detonations, maybe 5. Not the massive explosion of previous kills. No. Battery rupture, just the sound of 65 pounds projectiles punching through pressure hull at 723 feet per second, creating 3 inches holes. At 150 foot depth, seawater enters a submarine at 400 g per minute. Through a 3 inches hole, breaking up noises weren't loud, just the groan of metal under pressure. The submarine settled deeper. More holes meant more water. More water meant more weight. More weight meant deeper. At 300 ft, the pressure increased. More water flooded in. The temperature inside rose. 200 degrees, 300 degrees. The crew's lungs seared. Within 6 minutes, everyone aboard was dead. The submarine continued sinking. Oil and debris surfaced at 0702 after sunrise. Small quantity. The oil slick expanded. Over the next 24 hours, several square miles, 56 more Japanese sailors gone. Kill number 4. 5 days, 4 submarines. Word reached Admiral Ernest King at the Navy Department in Washington, Chief of Naval Operations, the man who commanded every ship in the United States Navy. King read the action reports. 1. Destroyer escort, for confirmed kills, 5 days using a weapon most captains didn't trust. King sent a message to 3rd Fleet. Simple, direct. There'll always be an England in the United States Navy. The phrase spread through the Pacific Fleet within hours. England was becoming famous, but fame brought attention, and attention brought new orders. On May 25, Admiral Hawley wanted England pulled from submarine hunting, reassign her to carrier escort duty. Too valuable to risk. For kills made her crew experienced. Experienced crews were rare. Protect the asset. Commander Haynes refused. 3 submarines remained on the NA line. Row 105, Row 108, Row 109. England had killed 4 in 5 days. The mathematics said she could kill the remaining 3 in 3 more days. Pull her now, and the mission stayed incomplete. Japanese submarines would continue reporting American fleet movements. The intelligence advantage would be lost. Hawley agreed to one more patrol. 303 on May 26, Raby gained radar contact on Row 108 at 15,000 yards, 110 nautical miles northeast of Seedler Harbor. The submarine Dove. England gained sonar contact at 1,650 yards. The Japanese commander made the same mistake as Row 116, stayed shallow, made radical turns, believed the Americans couldn't track him. Pendleton's crew had tracked 4 submarines before this one. They knew every evasion tactic, every depth change, every turn pattern. Raby vetoed in for the kill, but missed with Hedgehog. Division Commander Haynes gave the order again. Go ahead, England. 23:23, England commenced Hedgehog attack on Row 108. 4 projectiles hit, maybe 6. The explosions came so close together they sounded like one. Row 108 broke apart immediately. No slow flooding, no gradual sinking. The pressure hole ruptured at multiple points simultaneously. The submarine imploded. 56 men died in less than 3 seconds, faster than they could process what was happening. Kill number 5. 6 days, 5 submarines, 279 Japanese sailors dead. At Japanese Imperial Navy headquarters in Tokyo, Admiral Toyota reviewed the patrol reports. 7 submarines
deployed to the NA line. 5 submarines missing. No distress calls. No emergency transmissions. Just silence. 1 submarine every 24 hours. The pattern was obvious.
Something was killing his submarines.
Something fast, something accurate, something the submarine commanders couldn't evade. Toyota issued new orders to the remaining submarines.
Row 105 and Row 109 received the transmission on May
27th. New patrol depth 400-foot minimum. New surface protocol. No battery recharging, unless absolutely necessary. New evasion tactic. Run silent at first detection. No radical maneuvers. Radical maneuvers made noise. Noise gave sonar operators better tracking data.
The Japanese were learning, but they were learning from dead men's mistakes.
England, George, and RA continued northeast. The NA line had 2 submarines left. Somewhere in 3,000 square miles of ocean.
The Americans had the advantage.
Fleet Radio Unit Pacific was still intercepting Japanese transmissions.
Every radio message gave position data. Every position report revealed patrol patterns, but the tactical situation was changing.
5 kills had depleted England's Hedgehog ammunition. Each attack fired 24 projectiles. 5 attacks meant 120 projectiles expended. England carried 240 rounds total. She
had 120 remaining. 5 more attacks, maybe 6 if the crew was careful.
And the Japanese submarines were adapting.
On May 30th, George detected Row 105 on
radar at 2145.
The submarine dove immediately, but this time the Japanese
commander did something different. He went deep, 400 feet, then stopped all
engines, complete silence, no propeller noise, no machinery vibration, nothing
for sonar to detect. England established contact at 2,200 yards. Weak signal. Intermittent.
The submarine was barely moving.
Sonar operators called it a knuckle, a patch of disturbed water that created false returns. The submarine could be anywhere within 200 yards of the signal. Pendleton faced a choice. Fire Hedgehog at a weak contact and probably miss. Waste 24 precious projectiles. Or wait for the submarine to move. Give up tactical advantage. Let the Japanese commander choose when to run. He chose to wait. 4 hours passed. The submarine stayed silent. Then at 0230 on May 31st, the signal strengthened. Row 105 was moving. Battery power was running out.
The electric motors needed recharging.
The commander had no choice. He had to surface soon or die anyway. But he had one more tactic. One final desperate gamble that might work.
Row 105's commander surfaced at 0315 on May 31st.
But not where England expected. The submarine had drifted with the current during those 4 silent hours, moved 3 knee from her last known position.
George's radar caught her at 13,000 yards.
Wrong direction, wrong bearing.
The hunting group had been searching the wrong grid square.
By the time England
turned toward the new contact, Row 105 had already crashed dove. The Japanese commander had bought himself 90 seconds
of battery charging, 90 seconds of diesel engine time, enough to add 10% power to his depleted batteries, enough to run. England established sonar contact at 0345.
Row 105 was running deep and fast, 6 knots, heading northeast away from the
hunting group.
The Japanese commander was good, maybe the best they had faced. He had studied the previous attacks, learned from 5 dead submarines, knew that staying deep and running fast made Hedgehog attacks difficult.
The problem was mathematics. Hedgehog projectiles sank at 23 feet per second. At 400-foot depth, projectiles took 17 seconds to reach target depth. In 17 seconds, a submarine moving at 6 knots traveled 170 feet. The firing solution required predicting where the submarine would be in 17 seconds.
Predict wrong and the circular pattern
missed completely.
Pendleton's first Hedgehog attack at 04005 missed by 200.
Foot Row 105 had turned during the projectile's descent. Second attack at
0423 missed by 100 feet. Better prediction, but
still wrong. The submarine was varying her speed, 6 knots, then 4 knots.
Then 6 knots again, making the mathematics impossible.
England had fired 48 projectiles. 120 US 48 equals 72 projectiles. Remaining 3 more attacks, maybe 3.5 if the crew loaded carefully. 3 more chances to kill row 105 before the ammunition ran out. Division Commander Haynes watched from George. This engagement was different. The previous 5 submarines had died quickly, 2 attacks, 3 attacks maximum. Row 105 had survived 2 attacks, was heading toward a third, maybe a fourth. The Japanese commander was winning the mathematics game. At 0447, Pendleton's sonar operator detected a pattern. Row 105 turned every 4 minutes. 30 degrees to port, then 30 degrees to starboard, back and forth. The pattern was consistent, predictable. The Japanese commander thought he was being random, but humans aren't random. They fall into patterns. Pendleton adjusted the firing solution, predicted the turn, led the target by 200 feet. Third Hedgehog attack at 0508. 24 projectiles splashed into the Pacific, sank into darkness. 4 detonations, maybe 5.
Not the massive explosion of previous kills, RO-105's pressure hole was breached, but not destroyed. The submarine continued moving, flooding, but not sinking.
The Japanese commander was executing emergency procedures. Blow ballast tanks, surface, abandon ship, save the crew.
But England's fourth attack at 0532 hit with 8 detonations. The submarine broke apart. Emergency blow stopped.
The crew never reached the surface. Oil and debris appeared at 0615 after sunrise. Kill number 6. 12 days. 6 submarines. 335 Japanese sailors dead.
Admiral Hawley received the report at 3rd Fleet Headquarters. 6 submarines in 12 days.
1 destroyer escort. 1 weapon system that most captains didn't trust. The record was unprecedented. Unmatched. Impossible to believe.
But 1 submarine remained.
RO-109. Admiral Hawley issued new orders on June 1, pull England from submarine hunting immediately. 6 kills was enough.
The destroyer escort had proven the Hedgehog system, proven it beyond any doubt.
Every destroyer escort in the Pacific Fleet would receive updated training, updated tactics, updated firing solutions based on England's action reports.
But Row 109 was never found.
The submarine had
received Toyota's warning after Row 108 died, abandoned her patrol station, ran
deep and silent toward true.
She survived the war, surrendered in August
1945. Her crew learned about the NA Line massacre months later, learned that 6
of their sister submarines had been destroyed in 12 days by 1 ship using a
weapon they had never heard of.
The Presidential Unit citation arrived in July, one of only 3 destroyer
escorts to receive the honor during the entire war.
The citation read simply,
"For extraordinary heroism in action against enemy Japanese submarines." The words didn't capture what England's crew had accomplished. The mathematics did. British forces had launched 5,174
depth charge attacks during the war, 85 confirmed kills, 1.6% success rate.
Hedgehog attacks before England's patrol showed 5% success rate, 26 attacks for every kill. England made her record with far better numbers. 6 submarines.
Approximately 15 total Hedgehog attacks, 40% success rate, 25 times more effective than depth charges, 8 times more effective than the Hedgehog. Average of the weapon system became standard on every destroyer escort by September 1944.
Training protocols across the fleet were updated. Sonar operators studied England's tracking methods.
Hedgehog crews practiced her loading procedures. Fire control officers memorized her firing solutions. In the Atlantic, Hedgehog sank 47 German U-boats by the end of the war, 268 attacks, 47 kills, a 17.5% success rate, still the most effective anti-submarine weapon of the conflict.
But no ship ever matched England's 12-day record. Not in the Atlantic, not in the Pacific, not anywhere. Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton received the Navy Cross in August, his single decoration for sinking 6 submarines.
The citation mentioned his tactical brilliance, his crew's discipline, and the weapon system's effectiveness, but it did not highlight the factor that mattered most, mathematics. Pendleton had trusted numbers when other captains relied on tradition. He calculated firing solutions while others depended on experience. He predicted submarine movements while others guessed. The numbers had been correct. England continued escort duties through the summer of 1944, convoy protection, carrier screening, anti-submarine patrols, but she never found another submarine and never fired Hedgehog in combat again.
On October 31, 1944, kamikaze aircraft struck England off Leyte Gulf.
A bomb penetrated the forward engine room, killing 37 crew members and wounding 25 more.
The damage was catastrophic. Repairs would take 6 months and cost more than constructing a new ship. The Navy decided England was not worth saving. She was towed to Manus Island, stripped of usable equipment, and sold for scrap.
By November 1946, cut apart in a salvage yard, the ship that had sunk 6 submarines in 12 days ended her life as pieces of razor-sharp metal and tin.
Yet the record still stands.
80 years later, no ship has matched it.
Walton Pendleton survived the war. Promoted to commander, he was given command of an escort division in Alaska, spending the final year of the conflict hunting Japanese submarines in the North Pacific, though he never found any. The war concluded in August 1945.
Pendleton retired from the Navy in 1961 after 34 years of service.
He died in 1973 at the age of 66 and was buried at Arlington National Cemetery.
His gravestone mentions the Navy Cross but does not note the 6 submarines or the 12 days that revolutionized naval warfare. The Navy kept its promise, in a sense.
In October 1960, the guided missile destroyer leader USS England was commissioned, hull number DLG-22, later reclassified CG-22, which served from 1962 until 1994.
32 years, longer than the original England lasted.
When CG-22 was decommissioned, however, the name England disappeared from the fleet. Admiral King's promise remained broken.
The original Hedgehog launcher resides in storage at the National Museum of the United States Navy in Washington, D.C., rusted and largely ignored.
Most visitors walk past without noticing.
The placard mentions the weapon's success rate, but it does not mention England, Pendleton, or the 12 days that proved the system worked. Japanese records recovered after the war confirmed the 6 kills: I-16, RO-106, RO-104, RO-116, RO-108, RO-105.
Each submarine's final position matched England's attack coordinates precisely.
335 sailors confirmed dead. The Japanese Navy never understood what had killed them so swiftly. Action reports described explosions above, flooding below, and death within minutes. No survivor could describe the circular pattern of projectiles, the contact fuses, or the forward-throwing mortars that maintained sonar contact throughout the attack. The British developed Hedgehog. The Americans perfected it.
England proved it. Yet history often remembers aircraft carriers, battleships, and fleet destroyers, the big ships with the big guns. Destroyer escorts were considered expendable, inexpensive to build, and easy to replace.
700 were constructed during the war, most scrapped within 5 years of peace.
England lasted only 2 years after the war ended, scrapped at 2.5 years old.
The ship that sank 6 submarines in 12 days was deemed not even worth her metal.
If this story moved you the way it moved us, please hit that like button. Every single like signals YouTube to show this story to more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications.
We are rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every week, stories about sailors who trusted mathematics over tradition.
Real people, real heroism.
Drop a comment now and tell us where you are watching from.
Are you in Texas, Germany, Australia, or the United States?
Our community stretches across the globe.
You are not just a viewer, you are part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location.
Tell us if someone in your family served.
Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for helping ensure USS England and her crew do not fade into silence.
These men deserve to be remembered, and you are helping make that happen.